Here we are with our podcast. Welcome today. Right. So shortened is B, nickname is B, and there's no way I can pronounce your name. I've tried a couple of times. Could you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, James. I'm Birute.
Birute.
Yes. Well, see, you good. You did it.
I think I'm better on camera than off it.
Oh yeah.
Birute. And so we've just had a bit of a chat. So it's not an American name. However, there's an American twang to your accent. So where does that lie?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Lithuania. I was born and raised there, and I lived until I was 19, and then just left the country and then went around the world, and I spent a lot of time in the United States. So I have mixed accents of different states from the States.
Hence the accents. You mentioned Pennsylvania?
Pennsylvania, Delaware, Georgia, Colorado, like a lot of different places.
Wow. And what took you to the States and all of those places?
When I was 19, Lithuania is a small country, and I had this thing inside of me that there's more to life. I wanted to explore from quite early age, and I went to the United States with the work and travel program as a student, and I spent summer there, and I met my husband there, fell in love, and it's just how I stayed in the United States for the next 10 or 8 years or so.
Okay, so how long has it been since you left the United States full time?
We moved to Turkey about 9-10 years ago, so.
Wow, okay.
Yep.
So a lot has changed here in those 9 or 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
Have you revisited the States? Is that something you do regularly?
Yes, not so much, but I do go for work, for some conferences and stuff. We do want to go more since the kids are bigger. They want to visit. They want to go my oldest daughter was born in Lithuania. My son, he was born in Georgia, United States, and my daughter was born in Turkey. So when people ask, random facts about you, Birute, I'm like, I have 3 children who were born in 3 different continents.
And if I remember our conversation, the age split is 14, 10, and 6?
Yep.
Got that one. I do have a short-term memory at play sometimes. Wow, that's interesting. So do they enjoy going back and experiencing that Americanized lifestyle? Because I've worked in the States, I worked in California, and the America, when you're there, when you're in that bubble, it just seems like the best place on earth. It's like so positive and so energized, and it is incredible. Do they really love that and soak that up?
Well, they didn't go yet. We planning to go as
right.
I went a few times myself for work, but as a family we didn't go yet. We planning now. My little one is 6, so we kind of want to go all together. So we haven't. They're not too excited about it. Well, my daughter is, I guess the oldest one is, but the little ones, they're really happy here in Turkey.
Really?
To be honest, my son, 10-year-old, he's, as every 10-year-old has these fears and stuff like that. So he's really paranoid and afraid of these shootings in school that he's not very happy that happen in U.S. So he's fine here.
And is he the 10-year-old?
Yeah.
Is he the 10-year-old? And we are recording here today from Aquasis Hotel, who've been great at looking after us. And I hear he's a bit of a tennis player, and he does play here quite a lot. Is that?
Yeah. He has 2 training sessions a day, and he's been really good. He has more, the awards than I can fit on the shelves in his room, and he really loves, and he has a really good sportive personality, and he does work a lot. So we're going to Spain in a couple of weeks for his camp with Nadal and stuff. So, yeah.
Wow. I want to expand on that area here a chunk, because people who are visiting short-term, staying for long-term, or actually living here, what's it like for children? Because 6, 10, and 14, that's a bit of a range there of ages. What's it like for families thinking of visiting here with children? What are the opportunities, even just to have fun, or if you're here longer term, to be involved in activities for the children?
Well, like I said, my son, 10-year-old, he really loves it here. Like every time we talk about maybe, oh, let's explore, maybe we could live there or there or there because my job allows it. And he just starts, like I see his eyes watering up because like I don't want to go anywhere. I'm so happy here. So in terms of fun things to do, we play a lot of tennis. And so we don't really have time for things like that. Like every day we have, except one day a week, we have tennis, you know. If we want to go and have different kind of fun, we have to get out of Didim and go to Izmir or Aydın or other places. But if you love nature and water and, you know, things like that, there's a lot of things that you can have fun here. And obviously, if you go to school, so you have your circle of friends here, and there's birthdays, there's, you know, play dates, sleepovers, pajama parties. It's just, you know, I actually believe that you can create any fun, any desirable life anywhere.
I would agree with that. Yes, there is a sense sometimes that the grass is always greener, that the next thing is better, that whether that's something bigger or however that might be. But there's a lot to be said for this area. It's interesting as well that you said your children really love the area, really settled, because I know of a couple of families who have children, you know, 12, 14, 15 now, and when they've been brought up here, but when they visit the UK, and bearing in mind they are on holiday, so the parents have got money to spend on activities, so they think that that's normal life, so they just want to be there. They want to be there. They think this place is then boring. So it's really nice to hear that your children are settled here and they love it. What I found interesting in America was that it seems everything has to be organised. Nothing can be just like, oh, we'll just do you want to do something? It has to be pre-planned, pre-organised, incredibly structured.
Yep.
Even if that's a few children coming together to pick up football in a public park. I did find that very interesting. What's that like here? Is it very relaxed? Is it more of is it parents organising for children, or children organising and telling the parents, or is it a bit of both?
Great question. Actually, we didn't know back then, but now I can, you know, see the reasons why we moved here. You know, for that exact reason, we wanted less structured life for kids, more free. I wanted a life where kids could go and play, you know, in the area, and I wouldn't be worried. And they do now. So that's one of the reasons we loved it here. And we moved here just for the kids, because in States, it was very, very structured. I had to organize play dates, you know, weeks in advance just to fit schedules and stuff, you know. So yeah, it's really a lot easier in terms of this. It's getting a little bit tighter here as well because people are getting busier, but it's still lovely where my son's like, oh, I'm going to play football. I'm out for 2 hours and I know he's going to be okay.
That's right. It reminds me of being a young boy, which wasn't that long ago, but also was at the same time, depending how you look at it. And I remember, just going out for the day and playing football. Sometimes even take a packed lunch.
Yep.
And then leave in the morning, play football for 5-6 hours, be with my mates, come back for evening meal before it's dark. And it does. So I'm not a parent, but I'd be curious from a parent's point of view. Does it feel really safe here? I mean, you alluded to the fact they can go out, and you feel okay with that.
Well, I'm a very relaxed parent, first of all. And I do feel very safe here for my kids. We live in the area. We live in Yeşilkent, near Police Academy there, and it's kind of a little bit off town, but there is obviously community there, and you know, I feel very safe there for kids to go out and play. And my 14-year-old daughter, she hangs out in the city with her friends, and I really feel confident and safe. I'm fine. I mean, I know some other parents, they would always be worried. I'm the relaxed one.
With that in mind, how do you find the community here? That as you hear about in England, in the UK, 30, 40 years ago, you would have neighbours looking out for your children and know who they were. And it was okay back then to maybe tell them that they shouldn't be doing, if they're getting into mischief, that they could be confident that they could tell them not to, or that they would get back to the parents. That seems to have been lost in the UK for the most part. What's a sense of community like here in your neighbourhood?
Oh, we have a good sense
Really?
of community. Yeah.
Okay.
So we live in the cité, which is kind of like a, how would you call
Complex.
it? Complex, okay. And I purposely, when we renovated our house a few years ago, purposely made the door where from outside you could open. Normally in Turkey, the doors, there's no handle outside. If you live in Turkey, you would know that. So I purposely made the door that you could open because it's in our complex, a few houses that we live, we have this, like, we just walk in. No knocking, nothing. The kids can go from house to house. They can play there. I remember last year, I went through some hard times, and I come downstairs to my kitchen, and there's my neighbor making soup for me.
Oh, wow.
She's like, I figured you would use
Turkish neighbour?
Yes, Turkish neighbor.
Right.
I realized you would use some soup today, and she didn't ask me, and we have this understanding, like we okay. We don't need. I would go to her house, get something that I need. Obviously, it's not with everybody like that, but we've been lucky enough to have few, in our complex, few people like that, where really like, oh, today, can you pick up my kids? Okay, fine. Tonight I'm picking up, or they're eating at my house, or can you feed them today, because I'm busy. So this what I would not get in US for sure.
Right.
Like, I come from Lithuania, and even though it's a cold country, we still had a great relationship with neighbors, and I wanted that in US. I tried that, I would bake cookies, I would bake pies, and because we moved a lot to different places, and I would knock on the neighbor's door, and she would open and okay, thank you, close it. Obviously, not everybody's like that, but a lot of it like that. They're very cautious. They are friendly, but to a certain extent, they're like, okay, this is my property, you're crossing it, I don't know you, so they're very careful about that. But here, I remember when we first moved to Turkey with my husband, and we lived not here, we lived in Manisa area, and one of the first weeks, we came home, and by the door there was a big box of cherries. Like, up to this day, I don't know who brought it. I remember first year we came, we didn't have a car. We had 2 small children. We were walking and it was raining. 10 cars stopped to give us a ride. 10 cars,
wow.
So things like that. That's what made us really love Turkey, and moving here, really we thought we made a good decision. By the way, before we moved, and it was my late husband was Turkish, but it was my idea to move to Turkey, interestingly, because I felt like it would be a really great country for kids to grow up, especially it's their country too. So we had a choice. My dad always told me, live in one of your countries, so kids will always feel, okay, it's my country. Yeah. So we had a choice of either Lithuania or Turkey. We chose Turkey for. Was
that a long drawn out thought and conversation?
No, there was never. I mean, I love my country and stuff, but there was never even a consideration. we loved it. So, but before we moved here, and then we made a decision, it was really conscious decision. We said to ourselves, for 2 years, we are not going to complain. Because we knew, moving especially from States with this comfortable, materialistic, life, nice car, nice house, nice plumbing system and, shower, not that we don't have showers here, but little details, the roads, the exits, the
systems, processes,
structures, So we said, we're not going to complain. And that was, I think, one of the best decisions we made. After 2 years, we're like, okay, now we can complain. This here is like this like. But the first 2 years before we got to love really Turkey, and we focused our mind only seeing beautiful things,
so
cherries on our, front porch, people stopping in the rain and offering. we looked at those things and we focused on those things, and we had more of those things, obviously. So that was something that I'm very proud of.
Having that open mind and looking at the positives. It's interesting the way that you did that and the time frame you gave, because I've met families around the world who have moved in different countries, and they found that they struggle, because you have people that say have a property in the UK and they will either keep it held or rent it out. So if they've got it available for them to revisit, that can be great. If they've got it rented out, it means that they reduce the risk if Turkey doesn't work out for them. Mm-hmm. But I often find that it's those people, if you've got a plan as an option B, then option A might not be the real focus and the drive to enjoy. I find that, and that's interesting. Especially with children, I've found that families who have moved where their children still have an incredible amount of contact with their friendship circle back home, their network, then they don't, and if the child isn't fully committed here, that's when there can be problems and it doesn't work out for them, even though they could have been brilliant here. I think that's really important. So it's great to hear that you gave yourself that time frame to settle into things, to get used to the annoyances of systems and processes that aren't at play in the way they are in Europe and America. That's very interesting. You mentioned Manisa that you moved to originally. Why Manisa?
My husband was from there.
Right. Okay. So
we moved there just for like easiest, like to have an easier start. And my husband promised me, like, because I wanted to live by the sea. If you live in Turkey, you have to live by the sea, right? Yeah. And a funny story, it's been like 2 years, and we're like, okay, we're ready. I back then I was starting my online business, and we were like good enough to, rely on that income. So we was like, okay, we're ready. And but where? Antalya, Alanya, like I didn't want that busy area. And I remembered one French lady that lived in my town mentioned that we come to Didim for a holiday, and she really loved it. But I've never seen it. I've never been here. So we rented a car because we still didn't have a car, and with 2 kids, we came to Didim one day.
Is Manisa, because I played for Didim football team, so the Masters, and I played in Manisa. Is it about 2.5?
Well, it's Manisa region, but it's like 2 hours from Manisa actually. Okay. So it's it's 3 hours probably, 3.5 hours actually, where we lived, and we came here. We parked by Altınkum, in
Was
Altınkum.
that a day visit, or did you?
2 days.
2 days.
2 days. Mm-hmm. But again, we were like, as soon as we came, we're like, well, okay, we're gonna move here. So for the rest of this trip, we need to find where we're gonna live.
So you were like,
we're fast decision makers.
Right. Yeah. Let me just get that right. So you came to have a look around. You quickly decided that you were going to live here.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then, wow. Okay.
They had a beach. What else do you want?
Tick. It's interesting because the number of people that have. So you came to look at the potential of moving here and then quickly decided. A lot of people that I've interviewed, had conversations with on the podcast and outside, just social environments, that they came on holiday and within the first 1, 2 or 3 days, they're signing for an apartment, a property. And often when I ask people, what is it about this area? I mean, yes, you've said a beach, so that's a very good reason and clear reason. But a lot of people I always find it interesting that they, sometimes unexplainable, it's hard to go, well, it's because of this, and this, and this. People just feel compelled. There's something about this area that draws them to it. And I do find that very interesting. I do find that very interesting. So you quickly decided you wanted to move here. So the beach. What else was it about the area that stood out?
The conscious decision that we made, I knew before we moved here, before we even came, that there's a lot of English-speaking people. So that was important for me because back then I didn't speak Turkish. I do now, but before then I didn't. And I was like, well, I can live in this country without even knowing the language. How cool is that? So I felt that I could be here, so that was important for me. And other than that, I mean, we really loved the beach. Because where we lived in before, it was like, it was a village actually where we lived. So coming to Didim, and it was seeing the beach. That's all we needed, basically. And then we went to a couple schools, the government schools. Like, okay, kids look happy here. Ours can be happy here too. That's like, we didn't put much thought in it, actually, and it felt good. We I don't know, it just wasn't small, wasn't big.
Interesting, yeah. With that in mind, how do you find the all or nothing aspect? And when I say all or nothing, it's the season where we have over 1 million people in the area, and the off season where I think the official figures are about 88,000 of people that live here.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
and I think it was Byram that I think there was an estimate of 3 million people that entered the area. And I think the systems are set up, so when you think of systems, electrical, sewerage, all of that are set up for 1 million. So to hit 3 million, the place was literally bursting with power outlets, whatnot. So it was bursting at the seams. How do you find that all or nothing living here? Because in summer we have an influx. Some could argue it's too busy, too much, and a lot of people that live here, you find they'll go back to the UK or Europe, wherever their family are, in the, say, August, when it's really busy, the roads are crazy, it's maybe too hot for some people. How do you find that all or nothing aspect of being here?
Honestly, I do prefer the downtime more, but even then, I adjust my life to when it comes busier. I have my routes that I take every day, which only includes one traffic light. Yeah, and I try to like order more online maybe at that time, so I don't have to go. All my bills are paid by phone. I don't have to go in town. I try to really not go in town, and I'm fine. I'm really good not going. I have, food market and the vegetable market that I go once a week, but I try to go early in the morning. So like you really adjust your little bit to your life, and it's not too big of a problem for me. I do prefer downtime, but it's not that bad.
And are we talking spring and autumn?
Yes.
Yes, which we're officially in autumn now, right?
It's the loveliest time. You drive and the road is empty.
Sun is still shining.
Yep.
It's nice and breezy. It's not too hot.
And you can go to the beach now.
And you can go to the beach.
That's my favorite time to go to the beach. I don't go. This summer we went maybe 2-3 times, and that was with the force. The kids they prefer the pool and stuff, but the beach summer not too much.
And many people don't realise that we have the best beach in the whole. Well, would you call it province, county, state?
Thank you. And
I covered all bases there.
Oh.
Province, county, state of Iden. So we are in the state, province, county of Iden. And although I think it's known that Kushadasi is known as the jewel of the county, of the province, of the state, and you get the big cruise liners, the cruise ships in there, so you get a lot of tourists via that route. We do have the best beach, although in the season there's not much of it available.
Yes.
There's not much of it available, but there are so many lovely little beaches around outside of that main beach.
Yep. If you're willing to go and find, little köy, but they say here, like little spots, you still have quite private experience of the beach.
And I'm just going to go back onto something you said there. I like the fact that you base your commute, your daily travel on one traffic light.
Yeah, I'm very proud of that.
If there are Americans listening now, and they'll be thinking that'll be the reason to move. I mean, it's traffic light.
I cross the whole town. My kids play tennis, and from where we live to the tennis courts, which is here in this hotel, it's like literally cross the whole Didim, and it takes me 10 minutes. I'm a speedy driver, but it takes me 10 minutes with one traffic light. So I can't complain. In summer it might take a little longer, but still, 10 minutes.
And what was life like on the road for commutes for yourself back in the States?
Well, kids back then didn't go to schools and stuff, but a half an hour one way, it's nothing. However, I have friends that live in Istanbul, and the kids go to school, and it takes an hour and a half one way to go to school with service. So it's just the other day, me and the kids in the car, we were like, it's so good what we have. Just the traffic. I have a my son's friend plays here now, and they moved from Istanbul,
Right.
and they live in Kaplankaya. And she's like, oh, it's just no traffic. It's just so great. And it's like a 20-minute ride, and she's very happy.
Because in the States, I mean, traveling for 2 or 3 hours to go to the cinema
Yep.
is like seen as nothing, right? I know people that spend 6 hours to cross a state line
Yes.
for a certain
Exactly.
service or to pick up something that they can't pick up in that state. Which is it's just meant for people in the UK. That's just mental to consider. I mean, even a 2-hour drive to another big city is deemed quite a length.
Yeah,
So
that's for sure. That's really like going to school, not even cinema. It's some go to school this far.
You mentioned about Istanbul being so busy, and it seems where do you place the importance of your children experiencing other things? So saying like Istanbul and experiencing it being so chaotic and so busy, and the importance of coming back to Didim, Altinkum, because I remember moving here, and I think we were running an event in Switzerland, I think it was, and I remember travelling back and driving back I was living in Mavişehir at the time, and travelling back into Didim, Altinkum, Mavişehir, and I just had this feeling of home. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes there's so much importance of leaving to come back, to miss a place, to miss certain aspects of it, because we can often be guilty of taking things for granted. And I've often said to people, I'd rather get used to the sunshine and this way of life for this to be normal.
Oh yeah.
Than the rain and the cold and the chaos and the chaos.
So true.
Well, I think it's often that leaving the area to experience better or worse situations, scenarios, to come back and then appreciate living here, being in this area once again. I think there's, and I would maybe imagine that's maybe even more important for children to realise, because I dare say, you've experienced that chaos in America, you've had the quiet village life in Turkey, so to be aware of your surroundings here. But if your children have grown up and this is what they're really used to, I mean, where have you been? Where have you visited? You mentioned, so you've been to Istanbul with them. You mentioned that. What other places have you been to?
Well, we do travel a lot,
right,
because of my son's tennis tournaments. We once a month, even sometimes even more, we go somewhere. So that feeling that you just described of coming home is the best feeling ever. Like I really this is my oasis. I really, really enjoy the feeling, and I feel like my kids enjoy that as well. They do like to get out, but they do love to come back, and into their routine, into their home, into their back to school and stuff. So, this is the best feeling ever when you're out. And we were just in Izmir, we had a 1-week tournament there, so we kind of stayed there. And even after Izmir, I needed a day to recover. I came home and I just laid on the couch all day because of, I was so overwhelmed by traffic and, people, and because I like quiet places.
Right, okay. It's interesting because my friend came over from New Zealand and we met. He was heading to England to visit his family. So we combined a trip in Istanbul. So it was not the first time I'd been, but the first real time I'd explored and toured. And it was great, don't get me wrong, but I was ready to leave after 3 days. Yep. And I, rather than coming straight back here, I stayed an afternoon and night in Izmir and then came back here. So it was really nice to have that drop in. I mean, Istanbul is so busy and chaotic and super touristic, right? Mm-hmm. And I feel you've got Izmir is a busy city, of course. It's fairly spread out. So it does have its areas that can feel quite chilled, but it also doesn't feel like it's not at the same level of tourism as Istanbul, nowhere near. And actually, I've visited there with a friend where we've said, can you spot an obvious non-Turkish person? And we had, so there's not an obvious feeling of tourism, and I like that. Mm-hmm. So you've still got the vibrancy, the energy, but it's full of Turkish people going around their daily lives and whatnot. And then to come back here, so those 3 tiers.
Yeah, that was gradually going down. Right?
That was. I'm curious. What do your children pick up on, if anything, from other places that they wish they had here? And that's quite a broad question, and it means I'm asking it for it to be purposely broad. Is there anything that, I mean, that could even be like, they really want a cinema here. Or it could be to do with any service, any kind of event, or something about lifestyle.
You know, I'm going to say this. We don't have cinema here. We don't have like a big shopping mall. We don't have like fancy, super fancy, like, you know, restaurants. We do have restaurants, but like, you know, very franchise, you know, popular that kids would love. And I'm glad in a way.
Yep.
Because, you know, like when we go to Izmir, Istanbul, Europe, you know, like it's just such a treat for them. Like nowadays, it's harder to surprise kids, to make them excited, you know. Like, and now we go to Izmir, we go to Sushiko, you know, eat sushi.
Yeah, I was there a week ago.
See?
And I did 2 days in a row. See? Yeah.
And they come, they just excited, and I make their day. You know, we eat frozen yogurt, and we go to cinema, we go to shopping mall, and it's a treat. Whether if we would have it here, it will be like, oh, okay, let's go to the mall, you know, let's go eat sushi. It's not a treat anymore. And I want to kind of like, you know, put this in my kids, the gratefulness, what you have. And when you don't have things and then you get, you have a real gratefulness then for even for materialistic things.
I really love that. That's a great take on things. I remember living and working in the States, in America, in California, and it took me 2 months to get used to like the road systems and how things operated, and I didn't initially know why. And I remember there was two main reasons that I came to realization was that, so in America, if you get on the highway and you come off, you can be in the same area. Like in the UK, if you get on the motorway, you're coming off into a completely new town or city. So that was that messed with my head. But also, and which is why I'm bringing this up, is that you mentioned about, you know, there's none of the big kind of chains, franchise, there's special places of restaurants in the area. They're great restaurants, don't get me wrong, and we don't have the cinemas and shopping malls. I found it in America that you have these blocks, and you'll be driving through, and everywhere looks the same. Everywhere has a Subway on the corner. There's a McDonald's. There's is it a Hungry Jack's and a Taco Bell, and this is why I hear Americans say when they head to places like Turkey, like Europe, that it's all so different and it's cultured and strange buildings. And so to try and get your bearings in America when everything looks the same, that was...
cookie cutters.
Yes, that was pretty tricky, really.
I went to a conference before the pandemic in Texas. And Texas is like, you know, pretty new, you know...
Austin is...
Yeah, but it's like... Everything looks the same.
Right.
It's neat, it's precise, it's, you know, modern, whatever. But it's just boring.
Yes.
You know, it's the same. It looks the same. You go to the bank, it's the same very polite, extra polite person. You go to, which is nice, you know. But then for the first time that trip, I was like, oh, I miss the chaos. I miss Turkey. I miss the different people. I miss different... you know, architectures and this, and like, it's just your soul really loves those kind of things, you know, because you like, and over there it's just like very.
It's an interesting point because I've experienced this over in Asia. So I've been going to visit in Thailand since 2003, and other parts of the world over there, and there's been a real adoption of the Western world, the Western way of working, because it's efficient. And it's bright and it's effective. But like you said, the problem with that is it all becomes very samey, very similar. And yes, it works in one way, but there's something about the chaos, the noise, the uniqueness, the unknowing at times that you can feed off. And some people, they need everything very structured and rigid. And to operate, and don't get me wrong, that can be great in some respects. You mentioned about the banking systems, and there's still a lot of Turkish people like to physically go to the bank to trust that they're handing over their money or receiving it, to pay their bills in person. So pretty old school like that, which can result in hour-long queues, 2-hour queues, whatever. But it's an interesting conversation. the benefits from a system point of view, but also our countries losing their identity, losing their culture, what's at heart to them as people. And we've touched on community there. It is an interesting conversation. I'm sure we could talk about that for hours, and I've got to be disciplined not to go down a rabbit hole with that, because we certainly could. What I asked this question on a previous podcast, but what do you think is the best thing that's happened to the area in the last 2 years?
Oh,
there's been a lot of changes, whether that's from a people's point of view, a systematic point of view, things that there's been investment into the area in a variety of ways. What do you consider is the best thing that's happened?
It's a hard question because now that I'm thinking, I'm like really, I live in my bubble.
Okay.
And school, tennis, and home and work. I work from home, so like I like nothing bothers me. Nothing like I don't need much. So it's just whatever. There's I think this is the 4th year or 3rd year. This school, American Culture College, opened. That's where my kids go to school, and I did a
podcast there. I hosted a podcast. Yeah,
I really love it. It's
very nice school.
I guess that's a nice addition to the school, and other than that, there's a lot of new things coming up, buildings and stuff, which doesn't really affect me, but okay, well, so I think this year was the first international Didim, kind of like a festival thing about foreign people living here.
What is it? Was it named The World Loves Didim?
Yeah,
that's right. So
I feel like there's more international people living here now. They're getting a voice because it was organized by the government, the whatever, the immigration office where I go do my papers, and so they started to care more, I think, maybe, and then include us into town and kind of like recognize, okay, you guys are here, and let's celebrate you and stuff like that. So other than that, I don't know. What do you think? That's added.
Oh, I like that, bouncing it back to me. What's the best thing that's happened over the last 2 years? I think I'm really pleased and pleasantly surprised with the amount of investment financially into the area, in areas that historically wouldn't have been entertained from a Turkish point of view. So, for example, the Altinkum front, where all the roads that were upgraded with the separate stones in patterns.
Yeah.
So years ago, that would have maybe not been done as quickly, and it would have been done probably in the cheapest way, so just concrete or tarmac. And they spent, I think it was €1 million on doing so in a way that they didn't need to do. So the quality level not only from a stone point of view, from a material point of view, but the artistic way that they laid that. And it might sound boring, yes, laying a road doesn't sound the most rock and roll thing to do for the area, but for me it's an example of a change in mindset, of an investment into the area. And we've seen that a lot in various places in the area, from the main road coming into Didim now from Akbuk. I remember I was leaving the area one day, and there was council workers, Belediye workers, all along the middle, planting palm trees and cutting it, for that appearance to be an amazing first impression from people visiting, and also those leaving the area to feel good. And that wouldn't have happened 10, 15 years ago to that level. And I see it all over the place. There's been huge investment into roads and pathways and lighting, and I know that there's investment coming into the area as well. We're at Aquasis Hotel here, and I know that there's huge land that has come up for sale.
Yeah.
And there's been rumours for a year of a golf course, and that's I think that rumour's maybe getting a bit warm around here. Oh. I'm not too sure. And when I speak to people about this, they said, "Oh, that's been happening for years."
Well, I'm sure will come.
I'm sure will come, and then that will bring a different clientele. It will provide jobs and opportunities for people in the area. Yep. So I just think that
the fast internet.
Oh.
It might not have reached you yet, but like they've been installing all around town.
I literally I recorded a podcast and I tried to get it over to the editor in Izmir, and I think I spent 3.5 weeks with one file to try and transfer, and it was glitching, and I was leaving my computer open all night for it to transfer, and because the internet wasn't consistent, not just the speed, but it would glitch, and then I literally went and delivered the files on a hard drive in person to Izmir. So the thought, I mean, a golf club would be great, but faster internet would be fantastic. So I think, generally speaking, I think that the roads and the investment in the infrastructure, not only from an improvement of systems and strategy, but from a thought to make the place look nice and pretty, I'm just really impressed with that investment and that thought. I mean, we've got the amphitheatre now that's 4,000 seater amphitheatre. And this is, so not only is that way bigger than I thought they would have built 4 or 5 years ago, but if you look at the area around it that they've landscaped, and that wasn't essentially necessary. I think years ago you would have seen an amphitheatre built and then the area around it would have stayed the same.
They wouldn't care about trees and all of that, you know.
It still would have been quite dusty, and you would have people maybe just to park the cars, whereas you've got that area now, and it walks onto the beach, you've got disabled access. And I just love the fact that it's not just a second thought, or even wasn't a thought at all years ago, that people are thinking, the people in charge, the mayor, the tourist chief, the Belediye, are really prioritising this area now to not just for visitors but for the people that live here as well. I'm really impressed. I'm great to get that on. Great question, but I'm really impressed by the people in charge and what they've done. And I think it gives a lot of positivity moving forwards. What's possible here? What the real potential of this area is.
Yes.
Yes, not to lose its identity in ways. You know, it does have a tourist boom. I was speaking on a previous podcast where it doesn't close down. It has a nice feel in autumn, spring and autumn, and also winter. Yes, we can have bad weather days and it can be a bit cold and there's a lot less people, but it's shifting your mindset to that. And if you appreciate that for what it is, it's not a long time. In the UK, we're used to 9 months of poor weather. And hoping for 3 months of...
The weather here, come on, it's really good. Even winter time is like really, you know, nothing comparing to if you live in England or Lithuania.
Yes, yeah.
So I remember my brother and sister-in-law and my parents came it was January, and they were like in T-shirt. They were like, whoa, this is like summer almost, you know. So no, weather, and actually... Funny, my daughter, my oldest daughter, she's like checking the weather now, starts checking the weather every day, and is like, oh, when is the rain? And she's just like, can't wait for the rain.
Really?
She really loves it. So after all the sunshine, you know, like you have to be excited for the rain, and we are excited for the rain. Me too.
You will get a lot of listeners and viewers in the UK and other parts of Europe now shaking their head, thinking you must be mental. Your kids are crazy. Isn't it strange what you don't have in life? Sometimes you kind of.
They're very excited when there's clouds finally in the sky, you know, because when we go back to now like Lithuania, and they like lay down on the grass and they like look at the shapes of the clouds, and they, you know. This is, you know, a thing for them, an activity, and then we don't have that here often. Now the time will start, and they're like, "Oh, there's clouds," and they really love it.
If you had an incredible budget and a magic wand, what would you do to the area? What would you bring in, develop, add? What would you?
I love this question. What would I add, right? Like a big sports complex, because I'm a sports mom. Like with all kinds of like, you know, my kids love sports, and they just, you know, we do have from Belediye like a sports, you know, like activity center, but it's like not very active and not big, but like really good. Like now we have a good tennis courts here, a good academy, or like more variety of different sports. I would definitely do, because kids, you know, that's a really great thing for nowadays kids to do, occupy themselves with, as it always was.
Especially if you have the weather.
Yeah.
Especially if you have the weather.
Yeah.
You know, these...
However, I would consider had it covered and, you know, with the proper...
You see that with the tennis courts.
Yes.
Actually, in winter, they cover them up.
Cover them up, and then, you know, so like maybe because summertime, like that's what we have. We can only train here in the morning and evening.
Because it's too hot,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So we lose a lot of time. So like if there would be some kind of sports thing, like it would be, I would really appreciate having it like really, you know, with the ACs and all of that, you know, so that kind of stuff. I won't say shopping centers and, you know, like restaurants and stuff because of what I said before, because it's great to have them a little further down. I don't know. It's really, I like it the way it is as of now. And if I would have a big budget for myself, however, because that's the thing I always think and plan and dream. And, you know, it could happen actually in you know, it's doable. Just like get a big land and build a house there and on the big land and, you know, grow your produce, make your electricity your own, and just, you know, like have that kind of like farm life.
Love that. Love that. Well, we'll bring this to a close, which is always difficult when I'm sat with... I know, like it's 46 minutes. We're 46 minutes in. I've only had, I think out of hundreds of podcasts I've done on different platforms, under different brands, I think I've had 2 where I've looked down at the time and it's 20 minutes and I'm thinking, right, I need to, what should I think of now, you know, when it's not flowing. And it's always lovely to sit down with people like yourself where you could really, you know, a 2 or 3 hour podcast would be no problem. Before we recorded today, we said that the challenge would be is keeping it quite niched on Turkish lifestyle and living in this area. And I really love the fact we've touched on some things in terms of mindset, especially being a parent as well, and the importance of appreciating where you live. And I love the fact that you identify leaving the area and it being a treat and not becoming the norm. I really love that balance. That's something I've not picked up on with any guest on this channel. So really, really love that. That's something I could talk about all day, is mindset. And so, but we'll that's another conversation for another day on a different channel and different podcast. So before we sign off, what does the next 12 months look like? What's coming up? What's going to be big? What are you excited for?
Okay, next 12 months, let me think. More tennis, more school. I'm eager to, you know, like today was the really lovely day meeting you, a new person in Didim that I didn't know lived. So I'm actually want to dive in more, maybe back into community and meet. Because I believe there's cool people here. Even though I'm like really, like I said, I'm in my bubble, but I'm planning to, you know, kind of dig back into the community and meet more interesting people.
How are you going to do that?
That's a good question. I don't know. I really don't know, but I mean, there's like Facebook groups. I see they're active. They're like, you know, there's just going out, you know, in restaurants, you can easily meet people here. Mm-hmm. And, you know, just being open too, because you know some people and just willingness of, you know, meeting new people, going out, you know, there's different activities I see on those groups, like, hey, I'm doing Pilates course for free on the beach on Thursday, you know, who wants to join in? I have 10 years or 20 years of experience. You know, that's like a great opportunity to go and meet new people of similar, you know, likings and stuff. So there's definitely a lot of things that you can find to do if you're willing and if you're being creative.
And again, are we talking about mindset once again?
Oh, yeah. It's always mindset. Always.
I'm going to have to be disciplined because I could go off again on a tangent. But B, thank you so much for, well, first of all, giving up your time today, being open and authentic as well, which is so important. These podcasts offer a high amount of value for the listeners and viewers. Literally, people of have come to the knowledge that they can retire 10 years early because of the information, the value that we discuss on this channel. People who were retiring over to Italy and now realise, why would I go to Italy when I can go to Turkey and it's more cost effective and it's so much easier. And we've had families in Australia who are selling up their business to come and move over as a family. So it was really cool to start this by you talking as a family, and the reason to come over was for family focused reasons.
I can just add to that, if you worry that your children don't speak English and stuff. So right now in my kids' school there's quite a lot of Russian, Ukrainian kids coming. I have a friend whose son is 14 and he just joined the school, and because of the dual language in the school, they're able to study here even though they don't know the language. They're learning little by little, but they're able to study here even without Turkish. So that's really helpful for.
And last but not least, one thing I learned about the American Culture College, which is a school there, that they have 2 teachers in each class, one that speaks English and one that speaks Turkish.
Yep.
So that was very interesting, and the classes are very small as well. The classes
and
are
they're very individual, and teachers really pay attention to. My child is active and he's very hyperactive, and he's like, okay, well, that's how you learn. Okay, so then I'll ask you a question while you're standing and while you, doing this. So I really love that individual kind of approach to each student, how he learns best.
Again, we could be going off on a tangent, but I'm going to thank you once again. Much appreciated, and much appreciation for giving up your time and just the value that you've offered to listeners, and also to myself. It's great being sitting down with you.
Thank you. It was really, really lovely being here on this podcast. Thank you so much.
Certainly not the last time that
we
sit down. Thank you very much, Bea. Cheers.
See ya. Bye.